All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Late Show. Welcome back to the channel. This is your host, Young Brando, and we're live from Los Angeles. We're going to talk about watches today. We're live from, we're going to cover the winners from the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève, the Academy Awards for horology, Academy Awards for watches, basically, that are held in Geneva every year as a gala that coincides with the fall auction season. There are always some interesting watches, of course. There are a number of caveats that I'm going to talk about. Not every single reasonable candidate necessarily makes it to these awards. There are a few brands, a few conglomerates that have excluded themselves in the past according to their own particular reasons. So that's something that we should keep in mind. I think it was about 2 months ago when the final list of nominees were announced. I did a show to preview, and I wanted to run this bit earlier in the day, just as a prelude to this, but it was one of those episodes when I had my bloodshot eye and I was wearing my sunglasses and I looked like a fucking jackass. So I didn't want to bring that back necessarily, even though, of course, it is still in the archive. But I was on point with a lot of the guesses and my wishful thinking as well. Of course, that remains the same. But let's get to the brass tacks. Let's wait. Yeah, let's get to the. Whoa. Okay. That's not what I wanted. Okay, I'm getting confused. I changed browsers and suddenly I don't even know what I'm doing. It's always embarrassing. No. Okay. We'll just do it. All right. This is ridiculous, but we'll find a way. Yes, we're going to talk about GPHG and the prices they have given out earlier today. It was a very interesting ceremony. I thought it was extremely over the top, especially as it led to that point of climax, which is the Aiguille d'Or, the grandest of all grand prizes. I think the host said something to the effect of, receiving this prize is like receiving grace, and suddenly the camera zooms to this classically trained singer with a beautiful rendition of Ave Maria, and it was very strange and cool at the same time. They had a whole brigade from Swiss army or Swiss military rather on stage when Francois Henri Benamias came up to receive the award, which of course was kind of emotional for him because he has a little more than a month left of the year to step down officially as the CEO of Audemars Piguet and pass the baton to Ilaria Resta, who came in already into the company, but is going to start her reign as the new CEO by the beginning of next year. But yes, without further ado, these are the winners. To add my caveat, Swatch Group doesn't submit any of their watches for consideration when it comes to the GPHG. The Richemont Group does not. So, except for Van Cleef Arpels in the women's category, Piaget as well, and Van Cleef Arpels actually has usually also strong contenders in the mechanical clock or Audacity prize, because they make these glorious automata with incredible techniques of gem setting, etc. So they appear, but that means you won't see, when it comes to the Swatch Group, Omega, Longines, Tissot, Breguet, Blancpain, all these brands, you will never see them in the awards. When it comes to Richemont, of course, you won't see Alain Gonzune, you won't see Vacheron Constantin, you won't see Baume & Mercier, you won't see IWC, Jaeger-LeCoultre, and any other watch that comes to mind from these brands. And you won't see Rolex either. Rolex doesn't send their watches except their sister brand, so to speak, except for Tudor, which always has a strong case for the best diver watch. The categories get reconfigured from year to year, change with time. I think some time back there was a single category for sports watches that included largely divers and chronographs. At some point, the chronograph watch price split. There was a divers category. And nowadays, there's a sports watch prize, which I thought they were trying to rename and reconfigure with the express purpose of not having to give Tudor another award. But I guess it's funny how things work out. Tudor won it again, this time under the sports watch prize category. But that's François Paul Jean also, after having won the grand prize a couple of times with some of his best releases in the early 2000s, at some point he felt hard done by the jury for not having won the prize for one of his watches, and decided not to submit anything anymore. So you will also not see any F.P. Jean watches. And this year especially, I think there was a particular kind of attention for GPHG because it is one of those events that brings most of the industry together, mostly for a good cause and on a very celebratory and festive occasion. Of course, with the controversy surrounding Only Watch and with the cancellation of the Only Watch charity auction that was going to be held on November the 5th, if I'm not mistaken. Perhaps more of the attention was kind of directed towards the GPHG. I saw a post somewhere saying, like, this is the only event that's not tarnished by any sort of controversy, etc. Of course, that's never true, but it's still an interesting occasion, and certainly a lot to celebrate, a lot to talk about. Let's start with the Challenge Watch Prize. This is basically an award that is given to a watch with a retail price equal to or under 3,500 in Swiss francs. Hey, Robert. Okay. I figured it out, I think, now. All right, we're right here. Is that it? Does it show? No. Okay. Oh, you found the event ceremony a little stuffy. It wasn't enough that the AP CEO kissed the host on his lips towards the end. That wasn't excitement and relaxation enough. Well, I mean, I think that's how the Swiss have fun, Robert. That's as relaxed as it gets, in a way. This is an award that was given to a watch under 3,500 in Swiss francs. And in this case, I think this is actually a watch under 2K in US dollars. I think it's like 1850. I think as a piece of design, I actually like this piece. Maybe not necessarily the case, but once again, at least the design outlines are very, how shall I put it, very vintage or classically inspired, with teardrop lugs, a very nicely finished case for the price point. The sector dial, of course, adopts the same inspiration, or the same, let's say, design language. Yeah, it was strange. It was very, very strange, if you ask me. I don't know. I didn't know how to react to that, to be honest. So wait, where are we? The dial more or less follows the same design language. Sector dial with a crosshair design at its center. Small seconds at 6 o'clock. I think it's very sharp, very monochromatic. You guys know I Love monochromatic watches. So that always wins brownie points from me. The proportions are quite modern for a dress watch, but at that Goldilocks size for most collectors, which is right around 40 millimeters. This is 39.5. 50 meters of depth rating, which is, I think, more than enough for daily use, especially for this genre. And it's 10.25 millimeters thick. I believe it is a self-winding movement that they call RW 4200 or something. But as far as I know, for all intents and purposes, that's Selita SW 200, which of course is a clone of the ETA 2824-2. It is what it is, right? It's kind of the industry standard workhorse kind of movements that everyone uses in this entry level, time only range. And when it comes to the final list of nominees, I think there were some interesting pieces that I thought could have been perhaps worthier. My favorite was the Seiko, the 1968 Divers Modern Reinterpretation GMT. But then again, this is a category that was largely devised by the price point. And as you see, the kind of nominees, which is really their language for finalists that were chosen for the award, was a very mixed bag and represented practically all kinds of, genres and designs. So, either or. I think Chrono Tokyo's take on the GMT concept was pretty good too. The complication itself might not seem to offer much innovation, but you can see how Hajime Asaoka leans heavily on an original design language when it comes to his accessible range, Chrono Tokyo. Just between these two pieces, you can see how original he is when it comes to design. Of course, that can certainly be said about his bespoke range of watches that he brands with his proper name, but I think Chrono Tokyo always offers something exciting and different to the collector. And I usually get pretty frustrated with these limited series and drops, but Chrono Tokyo in general, I think, takes good care of collectors, has a number of different releases throughout the year. They do privilege people who have previously gotten a watch from them. Once every so often, they have a design that they want to direct to a specific group, and they give them priority and primacy. So that's always something innovative, and I think overall more fair. But yes, this was the winner of the challenge prize was Raymond Vey with the Miasim automatic small seconds. Now, honestly, I think at the price point, it's a very good design. I kind of like the old school two-tone sector dial that is given a little bit of a contemporary touch. Well deserved, and congratulations to Raymond Vey. Petite aiguille. This is also an incredibly competitive category. As it happens, this is the category that includes all watches under 10,000 Swiss francs and above 3,500. Of course, I had my heart set on a particular watch in this category, so I was extremely biased. But then again, it's hard to blame the jury for having gone to the bel canto, which at once seems quite obvious, if also somewhat predictable. Christopher Ward came out with this watch. When they came out with this watch, I think it caused quite a stir because it's quite difficult to find chiming watches of any sort at this price point. And in this case, we are talking about a watch, in fact, that's priced under 3,500 in Swiss francs. I don't exactly know what the current price point is for the bel canto. And I don't know the lead time either. I know they are extremely popular. I know they are very much desired by a lot of collectors who put in their pre-orders whenever it's possible, whenever it's available. Okay, I'm checking it now, and it says that it's 3850 or 3750. No, 38 basically. 3,795 is the version on the leather strap, and then their bracelet options, which is 4210 in US dollars. These are fashioned in titanium, which actually happens to be a very interesting material for a chiming watch. Usually produces a loud sound. They have used the self-winding Sellita SW200-1 base, the movement we were just talking about in the context of Raymond Vey Miasim. They also had a module previously for their jumping hour pieces that they call FS01. So essentially, just to manage expectations, right? This is not a minute repeater. It is a watch that produces a strike at the top of the hour. So it basically chimes at the top of each hour whenever the chime is on. I think you can actually turn it off. Overall, I'm of two minds in a way when it comes to the Bel Canto and Christopher Ward in general. I remember Christopher Ward maybe, in their relative early beginnings when, their watches mostly look like homage watches, that there wasn't much of a design ingenuity, and I didn't care much for them. Over time, they started kind of coming into their own, and I thought they were, really building some momentum as becoming a fairly original watch company. I was also very much impressed by the collaboration they did this year as well for a very special run of a jump hour piece that was done between them and Fears for the Alliance of British Watch and Clockmakers. That was a beautiful piece. Just to give you a quick view here. So I was really thinking, that's they're starting to do some original things, but then suddenly they started coming up with designs that like the Bel Canto, kind of look like the poor man's MBNF. Again, with all due respect to MBNF, I think with that particular brand, we're talking about a watch that, of course, several leagues above something like this. And the most recent moon phase watch they came out with was just unabashedly stolen as a design from Arnold and Son, and I thought that was in real bad taste, and overall just lazy. And I think it's quite damning, right? For these kinds of companies to make so much money in this particular market for watches, and then go on and use that capital, use that footing they have established to regurgitate other brands' products. I just feel like it's quite unfair, and just altogether bad form. But anyway, Bel Canto is an interesting concept. I think we can listen to how it chimes here in this video as well. So let's take a look.
Time is the most precious thing we have. We cannot say it's not a force. It's not something we own. What in French you call so nicely sonnerie au passage, which means that it strikes, just makes one ring on the hour. It's something that we brought to a level where it's accessible.
For me, it's a milestone. That's clear. I think you won't get the chance to build a completely new watch like this more than perhaps 10 times in your life.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't want to be too harsh, but that video kind of tells it all, doesn't it? I mean, all that beautiful music and the build up and the narrative, and you heard the chime one time in the middle, one time at the end, and it's actually pretty weak. I'm sorry. I mean, it's just not my thing. But that was the Christopher Ward London C1 Bel Canto, which is at the very least very unique in its price category. And what better reason to award it precisely at a category, Petite Aiguille, which is reserved for watches under $10,000. Sorry, I'm trying to get used to this new thing, so I sometimes lose my footing. I think there. Here is the. Here's the Petite Aiguille nominees, and as you can see, again, it runs the gamut in terms of genres and designs. You have Messina Labs clone of what is a one-of-a-kind, legendary, time-only Calatrava that was made by Patek Philippe for a Berlin-based jeweler called Margrave, with this three-tone sector dial and a beautiful black enamel circle at 12 o'clock. This was a collaboration of Massin Lab with Raoul Pages. You have the regulator take on Konstantin Chaikin's Wristmon pieces, which again offered an interesting entry point and a relatively accessible one to his unique concept of displaying time, unique and quirky. My favorite was predictably the Hapling 2 Chronofelix top second, which is something that I adore, except for the cathedral hands. Probably this is basically another exploration of Richard Habring in bringing, again, interesting and sometimes even quirky complications to the fore with using his particular expertise, and also, of course, that unique touch that he has with a particular focus on chronographs. Richard Habring was at one point in time Kurt Klaus's protege in IWC's complications department, and he is the person who devised as a module on top of the Valjoux 7750 the split-second chronograph, or the Rattrapante, or what the Germans call the Doppelchronograph, in the same way that Kurt Klaus designed a perpetual calendar module using the same base caliber. In this case, what we have is a single button chronograph with the so-called top second complication, which is kind of like a heartbeat of the watch, right? Because you don't have any indicator for the seconds, not a subdial for small seconds, unless the chronograph is engaged. So this hole that peaks through the number 9 at 9 o'clock actually gives you a way to assess at a quick glance whether your watch is actually functioning. I think there's a little diagram here. So this is what works, or what spins right under the dial at the 9 o'clock mark. And it's something that spins every 5 seconds. So you basically get that blinking through the number 9 every 2.5 seconds, as if your watch is blinking or breathing, and certainly functional. Very old school field watch / pilot's watch look, which is more appropriate because this was precisely the kind of instrument and complication that a pilot might have needed once upon a time. And of course, there is a 30-minute totalizer at 3 o'clock as well. I think it's a great aesthetic. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful design. I'm not a huge fan of cathedral hands on a contemporary watch, but still, this is something I really like. 38.5 millimeters in stainless steel and 11 millimeters thick, which is fair enough for a complicated, for a chronograph watch. And the price point is $78.50, so right around $8,000. I want to see what kind of video they have. Yeah, will probably show us how. I love how the dial itself has this grainy texture. And again, the finishing of the movement is very austere. Certainly not a high horology finish, but something I think that really aligns with the larger utilitarian ethos that guides the Corinthian-based Austrian brand Habring 2, which is led, of course, by Richard Habring and Maria Habring, his partner. I really like this company, and I hope at some point I can own a watch by them as well. Hi. Hey, man. How are you doing, Swiss? Feel free to jump on if you want to react to the GPHG winners and nominees with me. I'm both talking about the winners and watches I thought that maybe could have or should have won in the same category. We talked about the challenge category. We talked about the petite aiguille. And we are moving on to some of the special prizes. I talked about this in the preview episode a little bit. There are prizes that are specified for a category, and then there are others which are kind of above all categories and have the prestige that goes with it. The chronometry prize is one of those. The horological revelation is also one of those. And of course, the Aiguille d'Or, which is given to the best watch of the year, again, is chosen from the entire list of submissions without being limited to a specific category. Perhaps we should, on that note, talk about the special jury prize, which went to Vincent Calabrese, pardon me, and Sven Andersen for the kind of work they have been doing with AHCI, Académie Horlogère des Créateurs Indépendants. Basically, this is the Academy of independent watchmakers that has been established in 1985. Wow. I thought they were a child of the 90s, so to speak. Really, really visionary organization in an important sense. Again, maybe living in the era of new independence, we might not realize or take stock of the kind of pioneering work that these two gentlemen did or have been doing for close to 40 years now. But at that time, of course, a lot of the independent watchmakers barely had the resources, barely had the funds to sustain themselves. So for them to establish this platform where they could come together, collaborate, raise funds, exhibit their prototypes and new designs and new series was really, really important. And I was very happy to see them being awarded this special jury prize, because once again, if you have today something like the Horological Revelation Prize, if you have today people like Simon Brett emerging in a seeming vacuum, of course not, right? Of course he has his years of experience and wealth of connections in the industry among the collectors, so on and so forth. But if today these kinds of independent makers can come to the scene with seemingly simple, time-only three-hander watches and be able to sell them for six figures, I think they and the entire industry owes some sort of gratitude to people like Sven Andersen, Vincent Calabrese, and many, many others. I think AHCI today has 30 some members, and a handful of candidates. Konstantin Chaikin is one of the members. Hajime Asaoka is another. Ludovic Balloir, Felix Baumgartner of Uhrwerk fame, Philippe Dufort, François-Paul Jean, Vianney Olter, a lot of makers that we know and that we don't necessarily know or think about on a daily basis. Stefan Kudoke, Christian Klings, Marco Lang, Raoul Pages, Kari Voutilainen, Andreas Strehler, all these people, and there are also 5 candidates, which is a group that includes Anton Sukhanov, Shona Ten, Guo Ming, Nachiel Hulsmann, and also last year's Horological Revelation Prize winner, Sylvain Pinot. So an important group and very important 2 gentlemen who were awarded this prize. The chronometry prize went to Ferdinand Berthoud. I know I believe at some point Nick Fox, who is the head of the jury, has joked that they have to just set aside a prize for Karl Friedrich Schäufele every year, because he's sure to win one thing or another on a yearly basis. And it didn't disappoint this year either, because between Chopard and Ferdinand Berthoud, they had a lot of interesting watches. And having seen this piece, having seen their so-called Chapter 3 on a number of occasions, I think it is well deserved, and it also speaks. You can think of this prize as also an appreciation of the kind of standards that they uphold between Ferdinand Berthoud and Chopard LUC, where they submit every single watch they make. I mean, I should put it this way: every single model they produce to COSC for chronometer certification, and that's very important. Right, people make all sorts of chronometric watches in our time, in the 2020s, so to speak, that includes more or less complicated regulating mechanisms, tourbillons, so on and so forth. But it's very rare that they actually go through the paces to get them properly and traditionally chronometer tested through an organization such as COSC. And Ferdinand Berthoud and Chopard LUC does that with every single one of their models. This piece also holds the honor of being the only COSC certified cylindrical balance spring, which is the one you see here from profile view. And here you see that cylindrical balance spring in action. I think the watch is absolutely gorgeous, very aesthetically pleasing. With the white gold version, having this look that really channels the aesthetic of old school pocket watches and marine chronometers, with this sandblasted pale yellow gold movement, whereas the pink gold version, preserving the same design aesthetic, has a more contemporary, you might even say, casual, sporty look. Of course, that marine chronometer aesthetic is absolutely on point, or rather expected, since Ferdinand Berthoud was a historically important maker of marine chronometers. And chapter 3 actually was specifically designed to be Ferdinand Berthoud watch that was a little more streamlined, perhaps a little more quote-unquote simplified, insofar as that it does not have a tourbillon, it does not have the constant force mechanism. It is a pure piece of design with only hours, minutes, and seconds. Of course, it is still a six-figure watch. I think roughly around 150,000 Swiss franc, $150,000. But an amazing, amazing work nonetheless. And that is the winner of the chronometry prize, which again stands above every other category in an important way. It might not be the Aiguille d'Or, which is again awarded by the jury's consideration to the best watch in the competition. Last year it was won by the Grand Seiko Kodo Constant Force Tourbillon. Speaking of which, here is the winner of the Tourbillon prize. You're looking at the Laurent Ferrier Grand Sport Tourbillon Pursuit with gradient salmon pink, or opaline pink as they describe it. It looks like things have come full circle in an important sense for Laurent Ferrier, because their first watch was also tourbillon, and it was a tourbillon actually designed and conceived for them by La Fabrique du Temps, by Michel Navas and Enrico Barbasini. I think under that, they were already working as La Fabrique du Temps then, I think, even though they were not fully integrated to Louis Vuitton. Yeah, that was 2010, and yes, Navas and Barbazzini were already working as La Fabrique du Temps at the time, and I believe the tourbillon in this, even though the movement is finished differently, is that same movement. At least its architecture suggests as much. Although, of course, in this case, and I mean literally this design that has much more of a contemporary and sporty touch, of course, it is very differently finished. I think the 2010 tourbillon, the original Laurent Ferrier watch, had classic Geneva stripe finish, whereas this has satin brushed bridges with hand finished bevels and ruthenium treatment on the surface. This piece should be around $200,000 if I'm not mistaken, and has that integrated bracelet look, very 70s inflected watch. In my humble opinion, not in a good way, but people love Laurent Ferrier so much that they love this watch as well. I'm more of a fan of the Galet micro rotor, whether it's the classic origin shape or the square shaped case, which I even prefer more. But certainly this piece has its own cult following, and probably it's more attractive in this version as well, with the unique gradient pink dial and an integrated look that is executed entirely in grade 5 titanium. I think my guess was that they would, about 2 months ago, my guess was they would, in fact, award this to Laurent Ferrier. I think my favorite was the Parmigiano Fleurier. Laurent Ferrier, of course, was for many years the head of creations, the head of the design department at Patek Philippe. The Aquanaut was his brainchild, which, of course, you might say it's a design derived from the Nautilus. But for someone like me, who finds the Aquanaut, in fact, infinitely more attractive than the Nautilus, I genuinely appreciate Laurent Ferrier's approach to design, especially. And I think that's sort of softer, rounder, and in a way ergonomical lines that the Aquanaut so importantly establishes within Patek Philippe's own catalog, have been carried over really successfully to Laurent Ferrier's own brand. I really loved this piece, as I mentioned. I think the dial is incredible. Has that Milano blue, as they like to call it, at Parmigiani Fleurier, which I believe is actually also in platinum, like the rest of the watch, with this unique sandblasted finish, which receives some sort of galvanic treatments to achieve this profound blue tint. And off center, you have the tourbillon, which is a flying tourbillon, meaning that it is executed without a bridge. And that is, of course, harder to implement from a technical standpoint, and also oftentimes much more pleasing visually too, since there is nothing impeding your vision. And for a watch that proudly displays the tourbillon cage on the dial, it probably is the best execution. It probably is preferable. That was my wild card in this category. It did not win, but of course for Laurent Ferrier, which seems to come full circle with another tourbillon watch after their original 2010 creation, it seems also extremely appropriate as well. The iconic watch prize went to the Ulysse Nardin Freak. This also didn't surprise me, because this year was an anniversary year for Ulysse Nardin's Freak. I think it was the 20th anniversary. I might be wrong, but that's what I thought. Maybe it was introduced a little earlier. I don't know. All I know is the fact that Ulysse Nardin, after their after their devolution from the luxury conglomerates, Kering, they have leaned pretty heavily on the Freak, which was a collaboration at the time between Rolf Schneider, who was the owner of the brand, and the head watchmaker Ludwig Oechslin. And I think, both from a design standpoint and in terms of its unique display of time, which basically uses the rotational movement itself, the rotating movement itself, for the display of time, the Freak certainly deserves this recognition. There's also no crown, so you use the bezel for the time setting functions. This is the Freak 1, which is a variation on the theme, which uses a titanium case with pink gold accents. and the price, including the VAT, is around 65,000 in Swiss francs. Very cool piece, and I think it's a deserved recognition. Let's see who else was in the iconic category. Again, this was a pretty strong group, if you ask me. The Navi timer always has a claim in this kind of grouping. It's one of the most recognizable watch designs of all time, especially in its time. Its oversized and distinctive look gives it an incredible charm from period photographs, like from the 60s. When you see it on someone's wrist, even in a low quality photograph, it's really amazing and singular. Of course, the Beast, the original Royal Oak Offshore, which was offered as a chronograph, since that was at the time not a complication offered for the standard Royal Oak. This was Emmanuel Gates' design, introduced in 1993. It was celebrating its 30th anniversary as well. Their nominee in this category was the version that was executed in black ceramic, and which really, I think, brings out the original groundbreaking ethos of the offshore. I think that was a worthy tribute, at the very least, to the 25721 ST, which was the original. Again, the IWC Ingenieur, which is one of the OG original three Gérard Janta designs from the 1970s. Of course, nowadays, with the emergent and rising popularity of Vacheron Constantin's Overseas, which is a much later addition to the group, and the rediscovery of the 222 in 1977, which is a watch that is actually not designed by Gérard Janta, even though it is sometimes mistaken for one. It was designed by Jörg Haschek. Gérard Janta basically offered a similar design that he had done for Audemars Piguet with the Royal Oak in 1972 to Patek Philippe, which was the origin of the Nautilus, supposedly for the first time sketched on a napkin. I don't know if that's true, but it certainly is a good story. Ostensibly, the maestro drew the design on a napkin and presented it to the Sterns, who were sitting over at the next table. That was what became the Patek Philippe Nautilus. And in the same year, he also redesigned IWC's Ingenieur along the same lines as an integrated bracelet watch that was, in an important sense, the more utilitarian, the more purpose-driven cousin to the ultra-luxury sports chic designs that were brought into being, that were exemplified by the AP Royal Oak and the Patek Nautilus. Chopard, of course, had a great hit in this category as well, and it feels very interesting, honestly, for them to be able to present one of their watches in this category, because compared to the Navitimer, compared to Royal Oak Offshore, of course, the Chopard LUC is quite young. You might even say almost new and too green. But the original LUC 1860 actually marked the opening of that manufacture. I believe 1997 was the year when the original was released, and Chopard and Count Friedrich Schäufele had the good sense to bring it back, and really bring it back with a couple of touches that refreshed the design, really according to the wishes of collectors. And overall, I think it was a crowd pleaser. Not to forget the Tag Heuer Carrera chronograph, which was given this new glass box treatment, which I think, again, does a great job in both honoring the legacy of the original design, even as it renews it, refreshes it, revitalizes it for a new age 60 years on now. Man's Chronograph Watch Prize went to the Dynamic Duo, the two young watchmakers, two young independents, Petermann Beda, Gaël Petermann and Florian Beda, who apparently met at the watchmaking school in Geneva as two young men who have together, I think, worked at Arlang und Söhne, and also for Christie's as well as watchmakers. And they established themselves quickly as young watchmakers with their reference 1967, which was a time-only piece with a deadbeat or true beat seconds hand. Reference 2941 is a split-second chronograph that carries over a lot of the aesthetic design elements from the 1967, even as it, I think, elevates them to a different level. I actually like the overall cues of design when it comes to this watch, especially the oversized chronograph registers. I also enjoy the quote-unquote open-worked aesthetic with the transparent hour track. I was somewhat disappointed by the fact that the column wheel that they actually display with the help of this design is largely hiding behind 12 o'clock. You have probably heard me talking about um, open working on this channel before, and I'm not automatically a fan. Um, Yet again, if any particular watch, if any specific kind of complication deserves this kind of treatment, deserves open working, it's most certainly a chronograph movement, and especially a split second chronograph movement, which often gives us two, not one, but two column wheels to adore and see it in action. And in this case, I think it's at once quite impressive, but also a little bit of a waste when we don't get to see the action of that column wheel, even when this you have this bespoke dial that that could have somehow allowed us. I mean, the movement is in-house, but I can understand the difficulties of having an unusual layout, but perhaps the design of the hour track could have been arranged or differently executed, so you could actually enjoy the split-second chronograph in action in this kind of aesthetic. I think the watch is beautifully made, very compact overall. Really stunning piece in platinum. I like the organized chaos of it, so to speak. That you have that split second pusher at 10, but otherwise a single button on the crown. I like that thoughtful symmetry to it. And certainly it is a watch that at least looks very wearable. This is not a watch, unfortunately, that I had the pleasure of enjoying or exploring in person. I'll kindly ask you to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. I'm here almost on a daily basis, as you guys know, with new content, with watch content. I do a lot of live streams, but increasingly also shorter form content. I've always had these 1 hour, 1.5 hour interviews with industry insiders, experts, fellow collectors, and other enthusiasts of watches and man's lifestyle. So please feel free to settle down and check out some of that content as well. One thing I will ask from you is to share the channel more enthusiastically with friends and fellow collectors. I am right on that precipice of 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. It would make me really happy if I could reach it in about a week's time. I'll be 39 quite soon, and I will have a dedicated live stream in next Friday, where I will have 2 small gifts also for the community that I want to give away. So please help me spread the word, bring other people to the channel so we can grow our community. But it would make me really happy if I could see that bump to 2,000 as soon as possible. So I would really appreciate your help, and I will be forever grateful, of course. With that said, let us continue. We're looking at the winner of the chronograph prize at the GPHG with this beautiful split-second chronograph, which is the second creation of the youthful independent watchmaking duo from Switzerland. And it is a watch, incidentally, that actually costs practically as much as a similar piece from Patek Philippe. I believe the current representation of this complication is in the Grand Complication series for Patek, and the reference number is 5370P. You would pay about $300,000 for that watch. Peter Mambeda is not much cheaper because it's over 250,000 Swiss francs when you include the VAT. It's a big boy watch. It's a very compelling offering, but perhaps not what you expect, especially with the duo having really raised the expectations on themselves with their reference 1967, which was their first release. 2941, again, is a brilliant watch, but perhaps suffers from some aspects of that sophomore effort. Yet again, it was enough to win them grand prize for the chronograph at the GPHG this year. So what do I know? The other watches, let's take a look at the other pieces in this category. I thought they were gonna give it to De Bethune, honestly, DB8, which is a rendition or re-edition of their classic, which was also called DB8, but with the number 8 rather than having been spelled out in this way. That was what they called the football timer, with a 45-minute totalizer at 6 o'clock. This refreshed design is more It's bigger and badder in a way, with a 60-minute totalizer at 6 o'clock. Of course, quite sober as a design, following, of course, Denis Flageolet's traditional expertise in this particular genre, the single button, the mono-pusher chronograph, on which he collaborated with François-Paul Jean for a creation that now has a cult status, namely the Cartier CP Tortue monopoussoir, the single button Cartier Tortue from the private collection of Cartier Paris. That was a decade of Cartier's focus or work in collaboration with a lot of emerging independent watchmakers, high horological experts, a way of blending their archival designs with interesting complications. I think a lot of it is extremely interesting and still quite compelling on the market. I should have a video for my members in the archive that explores the less known or the lesser explored, underrated models in the lineup. Hey, Bruce G and Gondog, it's so nice to see you both. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But coming back, Denis Flageolet used a classic monopusher chronograph for one of his earliest watches with de Bethune. That was, let me see if I can pull quickly a picture of that. That's insane. I know it's 2019, but the fact that this DB21 sold for $15,000 just a few years ago, insane. Yeah, what a stunning watch, though. Perhaps not the kind of white gold we would like to see with today's standards, but this is an incredible piece, an absolute classic. Of course, the more modern rendition is bigger and badder in the traditional maximalist aesthetic of de Bethune, but of course, this particular piece is much more muted for that aesthetic, preserving what is essentially a very conservative, kind of contemporary dressy aesthetic on the face of it. And of course, in the back, you get perhaps a little more of that familiar de Bethune aesthetic with an austere but incredibly masterful finish. And of course, those signature elements, blue titanium balance wheel with those white gold inserts. Quite amazing. But at the end of the day, I can't really argue with their choice, which was the Peter Mambeda chronograph rattrapante, the reference 2941. Cool watch. I want to go with something more predictable and accessible. I have said before that I really thought that they changed the category. I really thought they switched from diver to sports watch for the award category just to avoid giving Tudor another award. But right after they reorganized it in that way, right after they have kind of reinvented or reshaped the category, they came back to Tudor. I don't think the new Pelagos FXD made it in time to be considered for the award. But the Pelagos 39, which came out earlier in the year and which somehow gave us a cross between the Black Bay 58s and the Pelagos series, and which became extremely popular since everyone was in a way looking for this kind of dive watch that belonged to the everyday wearer category, and it was fashioned in titanium, which is an increasingly popular material for especially sports watches. On the full bracelets, of course, which matches the case, and with a sunray brushed finish, which is replicated on the bezel as well. And again, this is a piece that's under 5K, so much more accessible in relation to all these other pieces that we have been talking about as parts of these Oscars of the watch world, these Academy Awards of the horological space. .39mm case size. Entirely executed in grade 2 titanium with a satin finish. The bracelet has Tudor's T-fit clasp, which is their version of the glide lock. The piece also comes with an extra black rubber strap as well. I think ultimately a very cool piece. It's also a certified chronometer, of course, which is not a bad thing at all. This was also a pretty crowded category with strong entries. I mean, you had the Ingenieurs titanium version that was very strong. The Doxa Army was an affordable take. Chopard had their Cadence 8HF, which is again titanium integrated bracelet watch with a high frequency movement. Of course, the Groeneveld brothers had their Delta Works, which in a way is well above this category in, not in a way, but in so many ways, really, especially in terms of the price points. And the Monza flyback chronometer by Tag Heuer took a kind of, I think, blacked out, skeletonized, kind of futuristic take on the whole affair, and maybe was a little too over the top for the taste of the jury. But honestly, I think the price point of Tudor, in a way, offers such a sweet spot for many collectors, that their offerings in this kind of category, whether it's called diver watch or sports, this type of watch that begs to be worn every day. I think Tudor has always something great to go with that, something great to offer. And in the umpteen variations of the Black Bay they hold in their catalog, and now with all kinds of different sizes as well, they have something for everybody. You guys know I'm a huge fan of the Black Bay 58 bronze, and I cannot begrudge the jury for not having awarded this prize, to a much more expensive piece. Tudor Pelagos 39 for the best sports watch of 2023 at the GPHG. I'm going to mix things up a little bit, so let's look at some women's pieces. The Serpenti Cleopatra, which is presented as a Serpenti, but it's really a cuff watch, which has this kind of snakeskin scale design, a unique interpretation of the concept, right? It still wraps around the wrist. It still has that serpentine look. So who can really blame them for using that trademark to go with this. I believe this watch presents so many anathemas to the regular person who watches this channel. First of all, it costs about $1 million, and I'm not even kidding. I'm not exaggerating. I think the price in Swiss francs is 938,000, which is a significant sum of money. Being so minuscule, it's also a quartz-driven movement, but timekeeping or time telling is not necessarily the biggest or even a significant part of the story for this watch, which is again essentially a pink gold cuff that is set with fine stones and pavé diamonds. The dial itself is a snow set diamond with a topaz glass. And the cuff design, the manchette design, is inspired by ancient jewelry, especially the types of jewelry that Cleopatra wore. It was set with 3 topaz, 2 rubellites, 2 tanzanites, and of course pavé set diamonds. This is the Bulgari Serpenti Cleopatra, which won the best jewelry watch prize. I don't even know if I made any predictions or really spoke about this category at length in my previews, but if I did, I think I must have simply focused on this. And again, I don't really have a lot of taste for jewelry watches. I love the Serpenti. I love seeing a Cartier watch on a woman's wrist. So if I looked at this category at all, I would have said Bulgari. I think I did, but I don't want to just make things up. This is not what we do on this channel. But in hindsight, I think it seems like a very well placed award. Ladies' complication went to a Dior watch, which is called Grand Soir Automate Étoile de Monsieur. Again, I have the feeling that I didn't particularly spend a lot of time looking at this category in advance of the awards. But I did probably highlight the Anne de Saint-Genève Arctic Sunrise, one of their beautiful world timepieces. Maybe not over the top enough for a category like this, but the cloisonné enamel dial with that detail of the sky that is engine turned by hand. Couldn't have been more elegant, perhaps too subdued for the category, which went to this Dior piece. Which is an automata watch too, which with its activation animates the sky that is depicted on the watch. Again, an interesting piece, fascinating take, not really my style, even for a companion, especially not at that price point, but I suppose it had its fans. In the jury, and it won. When it comes to the ladies' watch prize, I really like this one, which is a Piaget Hidden Treasures. Once again, it's a quartz movement watch, but both the cuff watch aesthetic and the turquoise dial that seems to be breaking out of that cuff design. I really like this. The engraved gold cuff is absolutely beautiful. I like that sort of arbitrary aesthetic of the dial as well, which seems to break through on the one hand from the cuff, but is also very intentionally set off by that bezel that is set with sapphires as well. I think the Arnold and Son Perpetual Moon 38 Midnight was a pretty cool one as well, with the hand-drawn stars and the moon, as well as the significant portions of the dial with its ruthenium crystals, the variously tinted mother of pearl facets, and the gem setting on the case, I think made it a very interesting proposition, but I guess the jury did not really agree with that. And I think the Piaget Hidden Treasures is a more than worthy winner in this category as well. Calendar and astronomy. Once again, sometimes the categories seem to be overlapping in a certain way. That there is, of course, also a men's complication and women's complication category. There's a dedicated category for chronographs, but they have every year an entire category for calendar and astronomy as well, specifically watches that honor that tradition of calendrical complications, whether it is a triple calendar, annual calendar, perpetual calendar, moon phase indicators, pure and simple, or maybe on the other end of the spectrum, more complicated, astronomically oriented watches, which is most certainly the case here, because you're looking at a watch that has equation of time as well, that has an annual calendar with indicators for the summer and winter equinox. And the times for sunrise and sunset as well, in a beautifully open worked and decorated dial too. This is a one-of-a-kind piece by Beauvais called Recital 20 Asterium. And also, of course, it's topped off with the tourbillon as well. Very, very cool piece. And priced at $500,000, it might as well be. And this is the back, which is a dial in its own rights with a zodiac calendar. The Beauvais Recital 20 Asterium, which is the winner of the Calendar and Astronomy Watch Prize of GPHG 2023. The Innovation or Mechanical Exception Prize went to Otlans Sphere Series 1. Otlans is a sister company of Ashmoser. Ashmoser has as their CEO Edouard Mailan, whereas Otlans is led by his brother Bertrand. And they have seemed to have settled on this TV-shaped rectangular case as a kind of signature. And over the years, they have also redesigned and streamlined it as well. It's a limited series of 28 pieces that retails for around, I think, $75,000. And ultimately, its originality or its its ingenuity when it comes to this innovation or mechanical exception category rests in its spherical display of jumping hour that is in the left part of the case. Considering this unique approach to displaying the jumping hour, the watch is in very reasonable dimensions, right under 12 millimeters in thickness as well. As I mentioned, the TV screen shaped rectangular case also integrates pretty seamlessly into their blue rubber strap here. Which is matched by a blue rubber ring on the crown, not to mention the blue PVD coated polished titanium sphere for the jumping hours, and the PVD coated and luminous or loom inlaid retrograde minute hand. Pretty cool looking watch. Absolutely not my taste, but I can see why it was attractive to the jury. Because it is a very interesting approach to the jump hour display, and it's rather finely executed again for the kind of watch it is, in terms of its design, in terms of the contours of the case, and in terms of the relatively reasonable thickness of the watch. Again, the price is nothing to sneeze at. It's around $75,000, which is really a sign of the times, right? Because ultimately it's a limited series from an independent brand. So that seems to be the orbit at this point. The mechanical exception included a number of other interesting watches. I did like the Chapek Place Vendôme Complicité, which is a double escapement watch with a movement originally conceived and designed for Chapek by Bernhard Lederer. Inspired apparently by an original Chapek pocket watch, but basically rethought, reconceived for this unique wristwatch. two balance wheels beating independent from each other, power delivered from a single barrel via differential, which cancels any variation in rates. So in a way, it's an interesting proposition to tackle any inaccuracies in timekeeping that could be caused by everyday wear, and especially by gravity. And of course, the universal, universel that was served up in a very wearable Code 1159 case ended up winning the biggest prize, the Aiguille d'Or, the golden hand, the watch hand, so to speak. So that we will discuss just in a little bit. This was the Mechanical Exception or Innovation Prize for Otland's Sphere Series 1. The Audacity Prize went to Maison Alcé, Percé Azur. And this is again one of those pieces or prizes that are kind of special jury. And it's an interesting concept because they basically provide you with the components. Only the regulating organ of the watch is pre-assembled, which means that you get to basically assemble as an apprentice your own table clock. Very interesting concept. But it really takes, this concept takes that idea of a personal connection, of an emotional experience of luxury to the next level, or to the highest level, really, where you basically participate in the creation of this artisanal, one-of-a-kind object, which I can certainly understand as an audacious act, because it's quite challenging to most people as well. And this is a 500-piece limited series that is priced at 5,800 Swiss francs. Pretty interesting. Maison Alcé, Percé Azur. The mechanical clock price went to L'Épée 1839. I really love this brand. It's not cheap by any measure, by any standards, but they have a very nice and beautifully presented way of integrating timekeeping mechanisms into miniature objects, into very evocative models. A lot of times it's sports cars, but it can be also, say, a grenade or a rowing skiff. They have they have a great collection and very interesting selection that they implement to their designs. The Time Fast series, I believe, actually are like Matchbox cars in a way, because you can, I think, wind them up by basically, pulling the car back as you would, I'm sure, if you are a man of a certain age, and even my age is enough, as I mentioned, I'm almost 39 now this month. There were little cars like this. I'm sure you played with them. You would pull it back and kind of release. I think this is exactly how you wind this piece, by pulling the car backwards. Very cool piece of design, a very interesting toy, fascinating piece of creative timekeeping art. It's a very cute piece. Time Fast 2 in silver chrome, part of a 99-piece limited series. The price, I think, is around $50,000, maybe a little more. Let's see what the video shows us. Of course, there's the commercial. I need to get the YouTube Premium. No chance. We basically set the time with the wheel. It's very, very cool idea. A lot of automation and animation that goes into it. Very thoughtful. Just overall, incredibly cool. That was a mechanical clock. Prize. Let me see if there were any other interesting pieces. Yeah, for sure. Right, like Alan Silberstein's travel alarm clock, Eismann, designed like an iPhone. It's very cool. The Maison Alcé Percé Azur, the self-assembly table clock, was given the Audacity Prize, so it kind of jumped above the category. And of course, Van Cleef Arpels had some over-the-top automaton as always. I think that's once again very well deserved, very appropriate. L'Épée 1839, Time Fast 2 in silver chrome was the winner of the mechanical clock prize of 2023. We have basically 4 more watches. The Artistic Crafts Prize went to the Piaget Altiplano Métier d'Art Undulata. This is a piece that combines marqueterie for the dial, gem setting for the bezel and the lugs, and of course the frame of the tourbillon. The miniature marqueterie dial was created by the French artist Rose Sanui. Which uses several layers of wood, straw, and leather, all assembled by hand. And all of this goes into intensifying the mesmerizing effect of the signature Piaget flying tourbillon. One of a limited run of 8 pieces, and the pricing is right around $250,000. Very intricate, very artful, ultra thin, of course, with the Altiplano concept, 7.39 millimeters for this gem set piece with a very special dial and a flying tourbillon. Apparently it takes Rose Sanui, the French artist who makes the marqueterie dial, about 44 hours to create each dial for this series. Piaget Altiplano Métier d'Art Undulata is the winner of the Artistic Crafts Watch Prize. Let's see who else was part of that. I think my heart probably beats for the Anderson Genève jumping hours piece, which is one of the best uses of the concept. I mean, everyone loves Anderson Genève's world time pieces, and rightly so. I'm a huge fan myself of their jumping hours pieces because you have these beautiful dials made out of gold blanks, engine turned by hand with their special patterns, and it's very impressive in each case. In this particular case, it is of course 18 karat pink gold, salmon dial, so to speak, with a very unique pattern as well. Amazing piece. But I can certainly see why they chose the Altiplano Métier d'Art Undulata by Piaget. The Horological Revelation Prize. Last year I mentioned it went to Sylvain Pinot, one of the rising independent watchmakers who put his name on the map as an independent. With his Origine. This year it was Simon Brett with the chronomètre Artisan, which I think both in terms of its design and beauty, and also the kind of redemptive story it had behind it, insofar as it basically realized a project to give primary focus to the artisans, to the craftspeople who bring together, who create in collaboration these watches. I think it's a beautiful looking piece. This is the Souscription edition. This is the subscription series that was made in 12 pieces, I believe, in zirconium. I think there's an open series now that must be back ordered for years and years, with a titanium case. The dial is beautiful, with a kind of element that is much like the tremblage, I think, a kind of hand-graved dial, which they call dragon scales in this particular sense, in this particular case. Again, the dial side mostly exposes the gear train and does that really artfully, using again that canvas of a hand engraved detail with strategic amounts of open working, and also transparent discs, both for the minute track and the seconds track. And again, the branding is very subtle as well. On the 5-minute track, which is the chapter ring, Simon Brett, chronomètre Artisan. This is the watch I chose as my thumbnail. Probably you can already guess why, even though Audemars Piguet, I think, deservedly won the grand prize. You guys know how much I despise the Code 1159 as a design. And it's really due to my respect for the brand. Because Audemars Piguet has to be the leader, has to be the pioneer, has to be the original. This is something that's borne out by its tradition. This is something that's is borne out by the royal oak, which of course changed the landscape with its release in the 70s, even though it turned out to be a true slow burner, and maybe it became stronger than ever in the 21st century. In either case, I expect AP to be always the leader, especially in terms of the design. And to me, the Code 1159 just seems like a mishmash of a bunch of different design elements that you see either originally or more masterfully executed elsewhere. From the pierced lugs to the execution of the dials to the octagonal mid case, which is very ironic for a whole release that found its raison d'être in not being the Royal Oak. Anyway, I don't want to beat the dead horse too much. The great thing about it was, of course, the mechanical innovation, the technical ingenuity that's guided it. So that's something that we will talk about. But we are still looking at Simon Brett's chronometre artisan, which was chosen as the horological revelation of the year. And that is something, of course, that is really exemplified by its finishing inside and out, by its design elements, and by the story it represents in terms of giving a little bit more of the shine, a little bit more of the spotlights to the artisans and craftspeople that sustain the industry, that bring out these watches. Man's complication. It was the Voutilainen World Timer. While you look at that, I will very quickly get another drink. Hey, Fries, how are you doing, man? Yeah, you were thinking about the l'épée, right? The mechanical clock that's designed like a sports car. Yeah, that does look like a Jaguar. All right, I am back. I think this is also very well deserved. We're looking at the winner of the men's complicated watch award. Voutilainen basically designed a similar cushion-shaped case for the Omni watch a few years back. That was the first time that he collaborated on a watch with his daughter, Venla, I think, Venla Voutilainen. and they basically adapted that cushion-shaped design, and I think very ably and interestingly, with this world timer complication. Of course, the caliber itself is conceived, designed, and produced in-house, which gives them, of course, this ability to implement a very neat and simplified, streamlined execution of a single crown, which actually regulates all the functions, or rather controls all the functions, right? You, in fact, jump through the time zones, manipulate both the hour hands and the city's ring and 24-hour ring with the push of the crown. This is supposed to be a very sporty watch for the Voutilainen CSW World Timer, cushion-shaped World Timer. So in addition to the case design, the dial itself in various shades of gray is very subtle, and also still quite interesting, and perhaps even more interesting because of this monochromatic aesthetic, because all the attention in this particular case can be given to the work of engine turning by hand. .39 by 39 millimeter case, 12 millimeters thick. Of course, if you look in the back, it has the beautiful direct impulse escapement. Again, a fantastically finished movement that beats at a classic frequency of 18,000 semi-oscillations per hour with a 60-hour power reserve. The anthracite gray dial has 24 sectors on the ring that's most proximate to the 24-hour ring, one for each, so to speak, in that traditional wave or vague pattern. The center of the dial has that triple wave pattern, which is very distinctive. I like the relatively unusual choice of the 24 cities. You get Motier instead of, say, Paris or Geneva, which is where the workshop is, which is where Voutilainen watches are made. And Kemi is Kari Voutilainen's Finnish hometown. It's pretty cool. I also love the two-tone bimetallic observatory hands. That's also very characteristic, with the heat-blued steel loops and the wet blasted and hand-finished white gold parts. Again, it's fantastic that they are using that single button, single crown mechanism for the quick setting of the city and the time zone. Very cool watch. A limited series of 10 pieces, priced right at around 200,000 in Swiss francs, including the VAT. Now, as we approach the midnight, and please hit the like button if you have not already. And again, I would like to repeat it. I would be eternally grateful if you make a special effort in spreading the word about the channel, in propagating the channel, asking your friends and fellow collectors to subscribe. My birthday is very soon. I'm going to have a special stream next week on Friday. And I want to see all of you there. I have also 2 small gifts to give to the community on that stream too. So look forward to that. But what I want to say is I'm on the precipice of that threshold of 2,000 subscribers. And if you could help me get there sooner than later, I would be eternally grateful. So I would be really happy if you would just send out the link through any channels that you can, and help me get to 2,000 subscribers sooner than later. Let's talk about the Big Daddy, the winner of the grandest of all grand prizes, the Iggy d'Or, the golden hour hand, so to speak, the Audemars Piguet Code 1159 Ultra Complication Universel RD number 4. Now, this is basically an homage to a very complicated pocket watch that AP has made and that they hold in their museum. That is something that they created in 1899. And that pocket watch has a legacy that is honored in today's RD4 1159 Universel. One of the most exceptional things about this piece, which is in a very rarefied sphere, of course, because I think they are basically made as pièce unique, special order. I think the pricing starts at more than $1.5 million, if not more. But what is really exceptional about the watch is how wearable it is. Not that I got anywhere close to it, but the case diameter is 42 millimeters, and the thickness is right around 15.5, which for a watch that has 23 complications and which incorporates 40 different functions is quite incredible, right? We give a lot of credit to many different brands for miniaturizing complications, right? When, for example, a brand makes a wearable, elegant minute repeater, that means something. When a brand makes, whether it's a new brand or a heritage maker, a compact perpetual calendar chronograph that's also readable, that's also very legible on the dial, that means a lot. When a heritage brand like AP, pushing aside my personal dislike for Code 1159 as a design, implements 40 different functions, 23 classic complications in a single wristwatch that is actually wearable on a daily basis, that's truly amazing. So I cannot really find any objection to the awarding of the grand prize to the Code 1159 Ultra Complication Universel RD4. Again, it's the fourth generation RD watch for AP. It thus integrates that savoir-faire, that experience, that spirit of experimentation in high complications into this single piece, into the single movement, the self-winding caliber 1000, which has over 1100 components, more than 1100 components. Among the functions, you have the Grande Sonnerie, Super Sonnerie, minute repeater, perpetual calendar, chronograph with split seconds and flyback functionality, as well as a flying tourbillon. The watch has this secret gold case back, kind of like a half hunter case design, which is part of the Super Sonnerie the innovation for AP, which means it has a case back that amplifies the watch's acoustic performance as a chiming timepiece when it is on your wrist, or when you simply want to chime it in an amplified way, having taken it off your wrist. But of course, since it is a hinged case back, since it is a case back that you can open, you get to admire this movement, which again integrates 40 different functions into its mechanism. It took about 7 years, apparently, for AP to implement this design, to come up, to finalize this design. Which is actually, on the face of it, when you focus on the dial, it's a beautiful, functional, legible, and wearable piece of horological arts, and who can argue with that? The winner of the grandest grand prize, the winner of the Aiguille d'Or, the golden hour hand, the Audemars Piguet Code 1159, Ultra Complication Universelle RD number 4. I mean, again, I cannot stop complaining, man. It's I'm sorry, I'm ranting, but even looking at the fonts used here, the classic Audemars Piguet, the Universelle, which kind of is a throwback font, and the completely illegible dog's breakfast of whatever this is, Code 1159. I mean, that should tell you the entire story about that model line overall and how it fits with the rest of the brand. But they're really trying so hard to get some level of acceptance and recognition of Code 1159 as a product family. And they just had to use it for this, and again for the Star Wheel complication as well, which is enjoying a very popular comeback. It's a great watch. All right. Thank you, everybody. Wait a second. Did it show you that video or not? I don't know now. I'm scared. If you're still there, if any of you is still there, please let me know if I was able to show you that video on the Code 1159 Universelle. If not, I will. No, it did not. Ooh, okay. That's okay. We can do it again. Can we see it now? Do we see it? Yes. Well, I'm sure you heard the beautiful music in the background. Yeah. It was my. That's great. Yeah, I was basically, well, I mean, it's all good. I'm sure many people are used to my rants at this point, but I was basically saying that um, even when you look at this case back when it's closed, the juxtaposition of the brand name, which is a very recognizable signature, and a font that's been established now for a long time, for almost 4 decades. The Universel, which is like a throwback font, but somehow still fits, especially with the particular aesthetic propounded by this model, this ultra complication, um, and whatever this is, the dog's breakfast of whatever that's supposed to spell out code 1159. But ultimately, I was saying, it is really a beautiful watch on the face of it, with how wearable it is, with how legible it is, with the kind of bells and whistles that it integrates into an a wristwatch that is wearable for the everyday. I think that's something magnificent, and certainly the Aiguille d'Or has gone to the right place. Okay, if there are no last minute questions or some special requests, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I'll be with you tomorrow, or rather later today, in my time at least, because we have gone past midnight. It is November 10 now, in Los Angeles 2. It was really, really lovely to be with you, really lovely to go through the winners of the Academy Awards of Horology, the Oscars of Horology at the GPHG. It was, I think, overall great selections, even though I had my own preferences, my own favorites that I presented to you, that I shared with you as I went through the categories. I hope you found it helpful. I hope you found it informative. I hope you learned something from it, or at least had fun. I know I have. In either case, I would really appreciate it if you would hit the like button. As I mentioned, this is a very special month for me, and I really want you to help me push the channel by spreading the word, by asking everybody you know, friends, enemies, haters, watch enthusiasts, collectors, and everybody else to sign up on the channel, to subscribe to me on YouTube, so I can get through this threshold and have 2,000 subscribers sooner than later. So I really, really appreciate your help with that. With that, I'm gonna sign off. Stay safe, stay healthy, wear your watches and enjoy them. I'll see you in the next one.